Thanks for joining me again in this quiet moment. Get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let your mind gently wander. Tonight, we're stepping into a lighter yet fascinating side of history, some of the most embarrassing and unexpected royal deaths. Even kings and queens weren't immune to moments of misfortune and awkward endings. Let's softly explore these surprising tales behind the crown. If you enjoy these gentle history stories, please like, subscribe, and share where you're listening from. Now, let's quietly uncover these royal mishaps. Throughout history, royal deaths have often been surrounded by grandeur, solemnity, and the weight of legacy. But not every royal exit from the world has been dignified or majestic. In fact, some of the most famous monarchs and nobles met their ends in ways that were, quite frankly, embarrassing, bizarre, or downright scandalous. Imagine the clash between the carefully crafted image of regal power and the messy, sometimes humiliating reality of death. These stories reveal a very human side to royalty, reminding us that no matter how lofty the crown, fate can be unpredictable and sometimes cruelly ironic. One striking example comes from the medieval period, where the life of a king was not always insulated from the chaos of everyday existence. Picture a monarch known for his fierce temper and ambition, sitting in his grand hall, only to be undone by something as mundane yet humiliating as a case of diarrhea. Such a death might seem trivial, but in the context of medieval beliefs and political power, it was anything but. The king's untimely and embarrassing demise could trigger a crisis of succession or invite rumors and gossip among courtiers and enemies alike. It's a reminder that even the most powerful were vulnerable to the frailties of the body. Royal deaths have also been marked by strange and scandalous circumstances that defy expectation. Take, for example, a queen who met her end while indulging in excess, whether it be from overeating, drinking, or other hedonistic behaviors frowned upon by her contemporaries. The details of such deaths, whispered behind palace walls and chronicled by scandal-hungry historians, often painted these royals as figures of tragic flaws rather than unassailable rulers. These tales of gluttony or excess leading to sudden death not only entertained, but also served as cautionary stories about the dangers of moral failings, even at the highest levels of society. Sometimes the embarrassment lay not in the act of dying itself, but in the bizarre circumstances surrounding the death. Imagine a king who died after falling from a horse while hunting, only to be dragged along the ground by his cloak caught on a tree branch. Such an incident combines the elements of tragedy and farce, turning a royal death into something almost comical in its unfortunate happenstance. Yet, for those who depended on the king's leadership, this was no laughing matter. The story would spread quickly, becoming part of the lore that shaped public perception of the monarch's reign and legacy. Other royals met their end in scandalous ways involving intrigue and betrayal. Poisonings, secret plots, and mysterious illnesses have often surrounded royal deaths, leading to endless speculation and suspicion. The image of a king or queen falling victim to a courtier's dagger or a slow-acting poison added a dramatic flair to their final moments, but also exposed the brutal realities of palace politics. These deaths, steeped in rumor and conspiracy, highlighted the precarious nature of power and the ever-present dangers lurking behind the velvet curtains of royalty. Even in cases where royal deaths were more straightforward, the aftermath could be humiliating. Funerals and burials that went awry, displays of grief that bordered on farce, or posthumous scandals involving inheritance and succession, disputes all contributed to a legacy that was far from pristine. The royal family might struggle to maintain dignity amid public speculation or internal conflict, showing that death did not always bring peace or respect. Instead, it could ignite further drama, shaping history in unexpected ways. What these stories share is a humanizing effect on figures often perceived as distant and untouchable. The most embarrassing royal deaths remind us that behind the crowns and ceremonies were real people, subject to the same vulnerabilities, mistakes, and misfortunes as anyone else. The interplay between power and mortality creates a fascinating tension where the spectacle of royalty meets the unpredictability of life and death. These moments of fallibility resonate through history, inviting both sympathy and schadenfreude. As you consider these royal deaths, it's worth reflecting on how history remembers and interprets them. The details that survive are often filtered through the biases and agendas of chroniclers, the sensationalism of storytellers, and the cultural attitudes of the time. Some embarrassing royal deaths might have been exaggerated or even fabricated to serve political ends or to tarnish a rival's reputation. Others were candid accounts that reveal uncomfortable truths. In either case, these stories add color and complexity to the grand tapestry of history. This exploration of scandal, tragedy, and strange endings in royal deaths opens a window onto the broader human experience of power and mortality. It challenges the myth of the flawless monarch and offers a more nuanced understanding of the lives and deaths of those who once ruled. The intersection of dignity and disgrace in these final moments tells us as much about the society that recorded these events as it does about the individuals themselves. It invites us to consider how legacy is crafted, contested, and remembered across time. In the chapters to come, we will delve deeper into some of the most notorious, unexpected, and downright embarrassing royal deaths in history. These stories will take us from medieval halls to Renaissance courts, from the intrigues of ancient kingdoms to the pomp of early modern monarchies. Each tale offers a unique glimpse into the clash between royal image and human reality, revealing that even those born to rule are not immune to the strange, sometimes scandalous, endings that history often delivers. When we think about royalty, we often picture grandeur, elegance, and power wrapped in layers of ceremony. Yet behind the velvet curtains and glittering crowns, the reality of royal lives could be messy, unpredictable, and, at times, downright embarrassing, especially when it came to their deaths. The second chapter of this story focuses on those moments when royals met their ends in ways that defied the dignity expected of their rank, when their final chapters were marked by scandal, oddity, or tragic farce that has fascinated historians and storytellers for centuries. These deaths peel back the polished image of monarchy and reveal a very human side to kings and queens. Consider the case of a famous monarch who was known for his bravery and might but ended up dying in an undignified accident. Imagine a king, dressed for battle and ready to lead his troops, yet his final moments come not from a glorious duel, but from something as simple and humiliating as tripping over a tree root or slipping in mud during a hunt. Such an end contrasts sharply with the image he carefully cultivated of strength and invincibility. It's almost as if fate took pleasure in reminding everyone that no matter how high you rise, the ground can always surprise you. These stories highlight the fragile nature of life, even for those who wear crowns, and the unpredictability that governs human existence. Then, there are those royal deaths steeped in scandal, where the circumstances raised eyebrows and sparked rumors that lasted for generations. Take a queen who might have died suddenly, but whispers suggest it was not from natural causes. Perhaps the palace buzzed with talk of poison, betrayal, or a secret lover's hand in her demise. The tantalizing mystery of these deaths fueled intrigue, conspiracies, and political machinations. Royal deaths wrapped in scandal added a dark, juicy layer to history, making the deceased not just a figure of state, but a character in a tragic drama full of suspense and shadowy motives. These stories feed our fascination with the intersection of power, danger, and human frailty. Sometimes, embarrassment came from the king or queen's own actions in their final days. Imagine a monarch who indulged too freely in food or drink, falling victim to excess in a way that undermined their image of control and discipline. Their last moments might have been spent in discomfort or confusion, surrounded not by dignitaries, but by servants trying to manage the chaos. The contrast between the royal image of grace and the reality of physical frailty made these deaths the subject of whispered gossip and sometimes cruel satire. These endings serve as reminders that behind the pomp, rulers were subject to the same vulnerabilities and poor choices as anyone else. On occasion, the manner of death itself became a source of humiliation or oddity. Think of a king who died because of a bizarre accident, such as choking on food or being attacked by an animal while walking in his private gardens. These unexpected and strange deaths often defied the noble narratives intended to surround monarchs, instead painting them as fallible, even foolish. The public and historians alike found fascination in these incidents because they humanized rulers who might otherwise seem distant or untouchable. They remind us that even those born to power can meet their ends in the most unceremonious ways. In some tragic cases, the line between scandal and misfortune blurred. A royal might have died during childbirth, an event fraught with danger in every era, but particularly so in the past. The death of a queen in childbirth could plunge a nation into mourning, succession crises, and political upheaval. While childbirth was a natural event, the vulnerability of queens during this time exposed a deep fragility beneath the veneer of regal authority. Such deaths were a mix of tragedy and embarrassment in a society that prized continuity and strength in its rulers. They served as stark reminders that even the most protected and powerful were at the mercy of life's hazards. Royal deaths could also be marked by public spectacle gone wrong. Funerals meant to honor and glorify a monarch occasionally became chaotic or macabre affairs. Perhaps a procession was disrupted by weather, animals, or unruly crowds, turning solemn rituals into scenes of confusion or farce. Such moments could tarnish a monarch's memory and reflect poorly on the court's ability to maintain dignity even in death. These incidents show how the control exercised in life could unravel quickly in death, leaving a legacy shaped as much by mishap as by achievement. The reactions of family and courtiers to royal deaths added yet another layer of complexity. Grief could turn into public displays of emotion, that ranged from heartfelt sorrow to dramatic outbursts that bordered on the theatrical. Sometimes these displays invited mockery or suspicion, especially if there were political motives behind the mourning. Royal funerals were as much about power and politics as about loss, and the behavior of those left behind could either uphold or undermine the deceased's dignity. These moments of vulnerability, though deeply human, often became entangled with court intrigue and public perception. What emerges from these stories is a vivid portrait of the often messy reality behind royal deaths. The grand narratives of history frequently omit the embarrassing, strange, or tragic details that make these figures relatable and real. It is these imperfections and odd endings that remind us of the shared humanity between rulers and their subjects. No matter the throne, crown, or lineage, death equalizes all, often in ways that defy expectations and reveal uncomfortable truths. In reflecting on these tales, we also recognize the role of history and storytelling in shaping how we remember royalty. Chroniclers and historians have long been fascinated by scandal and tragedy, weaving accounts that sometimes blur fact and fiction. The most embarrassing royal deaths become enduring legends, capturing the imagination and influencing how entire reigns are viewed. These stories invite us to question the reliability of historical narratives and to appreciate the complexity behind every headline of power. As we continue to explore the lives and deaths of monarchs who shaped the world, it is important to embrace these stories not just as curiosities, but as vital windows into the nature of power, mortality, and human fallibility. The second chapter of this journey reminds us that beneath the crowns and royal robes were people subject to the unpredictability of life and the sometimes cruel hand of fate. Their endings, marked by scandal, tragedy, or sheer oddity, challenge the polished images of royalty and invite us to see history in all its flawed and fascinating reality. In the next chapters, we will delve deeper into specific cases, uncovering the stories of kings and queens who met their ends in ways that shocked their contemporaries and continue to intrigue us today. From the scandalous to the bizarre, from the tragic to the farcical, these royal deaths offer a rich tapestry of human experience at the highest levels of power. They remind us that history is not just about triumphs and conquests, but also about the messy, unpredictable, and deeply human moments that shape legacies and lives. History is full of tales where the grandiosity of royalty meets the unpredictability of human fate, and nowhere is this more evident than in the strange and embarrassing deaths of kings and queens. Imagine a monarch who spent their life carefully crafting an image of power, dignity, and control, only to meet their end in a manner so bizarre or humiliating that it became a scandal whispered through generations. These moments of unexpected folly or tragedy remind us that beneath the crowns were human beings subject to the same frailties and misfortunes as anyone else. One particularly memorable example comes from a monarch known for his love of extravagant feasts and lively celebrations. Despite his grand reputation, he met his end in a way that shocked and amused contemporaries. He died choking on a large piece of meat. The idea of a king surrounded by opulence, brought low by something as mundane as a meal gone wrong, carries an ironic twist that highlights the vulnerability even the most powerful face. Such stories often spread quickly, becoming part of the folklore surrounding the monarchy. They were retold with a mixture of fascination and schadenfreude, humanizing figures otherwise distant from the common people. In some cases, these embarrassing deaths were amplified or even fabricated by rivals or critics seeking to tarnish a ruler's legacy. This intersection of fact and fiction created a rich tapestry of royal legends that blended truth with exaggeration, making it difficult to separate the historical from the theatrical. The enduring interest in these tales speaks to a universal curiosity about the human side of those who held immense power. Another striking case involves a monarch whose death was overshadowed by scandalous behavior leading up to the end. This ruler, known for a series of ill-advised decisions and personal excesses, reportedly succumbed after a night of excessive drinking and partying. The story, relayed through court gossip and foreign observers, painted a vivid picture of a royal who failed to uphold the dignified image expected of their station. Such deaths served as cautionary tales about the dangers of indulgence and moral decline, especially for those in positions of leadership. They reflected societal expectations that monarchs should embody not just political authority, but also moral virtue. And when those expectations were unmet, the resulting narratives could be harsh and unforgiving. In contrast, some royal deaths were marked by sheer tragic accident, highlighting the precariousness of life regardless of status. Imagine a king who, in the midst of a hunting expedition, suffered a fatal fall from his horse or was injured in a freak accident that proved fatal. These incidents could be particularly humiliating because they exposed a vulnerability that stood in stark contrast to the martial prowess and control often associated with kingship. The notion that a ruler could be undone by such everyday dangers served to remind both subjects and historians alike of the unpredictability of fate. The stories often took on a cautionary tone, underscoring that death respects neither crown nor power. Beyond accidents and excesses, the political implications of embarrassing royal deaths could be profound. The sudden and ignominious passing of a monarch sometimes threw a kingdom into chaos, triggering succession crises or inviting foreign intervention. When a ruler died in scandalous or undignified circumstances, it weakened the perception of stability and authority essential to governance. Courtiers and rivals might exploit the situation, spreading rumors or advancing claims to the throne. The embarrassment of the death thus had ramifications far beyond personal reputation. It could alter the course of history. This dynamic made the maintenance of a dignified image in life and death a matter of political survival. Sometimes, the embarrassment came not from the death itself, but from what followed. Funerary rites, meant to honor and solidify a monarch's legacy, occasionally descended into farce or tragedy. Imagine a funeral procession disrupted by unforeseen weather or mishaps, or a royal tomb desecrated soon after burial. These events could cast a shadow over the monarch's memory and provide fodder for gossip and legend. The attempts to control how a royal death was commemorated were part of a broader effort to manage legacy and public perception. But when these efforts failed, the results could be as embarrassing as the death itself. These posthumous mishaps remind us that even in death, the spectacle of royalty remains subject to the whims of fate and human error. Another facet of embarrassing royal deaths involves the personal reactions of family and courtiers. Grief in royal circles was often a public performance, subject to scrutiny and political calculation. At times, displays of mourning could be seen as excessive, insincere, or even self-serving. Conversely, perceived coldness or indifference could invite criticism and scandal. These dynamics turned royal death into a stage where emotions were as much about image as about genuine feeling. The complex interplay between personal loss and public expectation added another layer to the embarrassment or dignity surrounding royal deaths. It highlights how death in monarchy was never a private affair, but a matter intertwined with power and politics. These stories of embarrassing royal deaths challenge the traditional narratives of monarchy that focus solely on triumph, power, and legacy. They remind us that even those born into privilege and authority are subject to the frailties, accidents, and missteps that define the human condition. The mixture of scandal, tragedy, and oddity in these deaths adds depth and texture to our understanding of history, making it more relatable and complex. They invite us to see kings and queens not just as figures on a pedestal, but as people who faced the same vulnerabilities as everyone else. Reflecting on these tales also prompts us to consider how history is written and remembered. The details of royal deaths are often filtered through the perspectives and biases of chroniclers, sometimes sensationalized to serve political agendas or popular tastes. This complicates our efforts to discern truth from rumor and highlights the role of storytelling in shaping legacies. The fascination with embarrassing royal deaths speaks to a desire to humanize and demystify power, making history accessible and engaging. It also serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking when approaching historical narratives. As we move forward, the stories that follow will delve deeper into individual cases, each revealing unique circumstances and consequences of royal deaths that defied expectations. From poisonings and bizarre accidents to tragic mistakes and scandalous behavior, these tales will continue to explore the collision between royal dignity and human fallibility. They offer a window into the lives of those who ruled, revealing that behind the crown were individuals whose final moments could be as surprising and complicated as anyone's. Ultimately, the most embarrassing royal deaths teach us about the fragile nature of power and the universal reality of mortality. They remind us that no matter the throne or title, death is the great equalizer, often arriving with a dose of irony or scandal that challenges our perceptions of greatness. These stories enrich our understanding of history, providing both caution and comfort as we recognize the shared humanity that connects us all, from kings and queens to ordinary people. Royal deaths have often been surrounded by ceremony and grandeur, but beneath the pomp and pageantry lie some of the most unexpected and embarrassing ends to lives that shaped history. This part of the story explores how even monarchs, wrapped in the trappings of power, sometimes met their fate in ways that exposed their vulnerability and humanity, in stark contrast to the regal image they cultivated. These moments of mortality serve as poignant reminders that no crown, no matter how heavy, can shield its wearer from the unpredictable nature of death. Consider a ruler renowned for his military prowess and unshakable confidence, who met an ironic and humiliating end on the battlefield, not through the clash of swords or the spear's thrust, but due to a mishap as simple as a horse's stumble. Imagine the shock of those who revered him when their mighty king, the symbol of strength and courage, was brought down not by the enemy, but by a twisted ankle or a fall from his own mount. Such a death highlights the fragility underlying even the most formidable figures. It also shifts the narrative from triumphant conquest to human frailty, showing that destiny can be cruelly indifferent to reputation or ambition. Beyond accidents, some royal deaths were overshadowed by scandal that erupted in their final days or immediately afterward. Take the case of a queen whose private life was subject to rumors and intrigue, whose death sparked gossip about secret affairs, poisonings, or hidden enemies. The details of her demise, sometimes whispered behind palace doors and chronicled in scandalous pamphlets, painted a picture far removed from the serene dignity expected of a monarch's passing. Such stories fed into public fascination and political maneuvering, turning death into a spectacle where personal flaws were magnified and used to undermine dynasties. The scandals surrounding these deaths made them inseparable from the politics and power struggles of their time. In other instances, royal deaths became embarrassing because of physical conditions or behaviors that clashed with their public personas. Imagine a king who, despite his reputation for discipline, succumbed to a fatal illness brought on by excessive indulgence in food or drink. His last days might have been marked by discomfort and loss of control, a stark contrast to the image of a ruler who managed vast realms with authority and grace. These deaths revealed the tensions between public expectation and private reality, highlighting the vulnerability of even the most revered figures. The disconnect between appearance and actuality made such endings all the more compelling and, at times, humiliating. Some monarchs met their ends in bizarre or almost comical ways, adding a layer of irony to their legacies. Picture a king who died after being caught in an awkward predicament, perhaps choking on a morsel during a feast or slipping in a royal bath. These moments, though tragic, carry an element of humanizing absurdity. They remind us that no matter the crown or scepter, human bodies remain susceptible to the most ordinary accidents. Such stories have endured precisely because they break the expectations of dignity and decorum, revealing a monarch caught unguarded by the unpredictable whims of fate. Royal deaths could also be embarrassing because of what followed the funerals and rituals that were meant to honor and cement the monarch's place in history. Imagine a grand procession disrupted by rain or mishaps, where ceremonial robes became soaked or the coffin was mishandled. These moments of chaos contrasted sharply with the solemnity intended, leaving the court and public with a memory that was more awkward than awe-inspiring. Funerary blunders became part of the narrative of a monarch's reign, sometimes interpreted as omens or signs of divine displeasure. These posthumous embarrassments remind us that even in death, control could slip away and legacy could be shaped by unforeseen moments. The reactions of royal family members and courtiers to these deaths added yet another layer of complexity and, at times, embarrassment. Public displays of grief were often expected to be measured and dignified, yet emotions sometimes spilled over into dramatic or theatrical performances. Excessive mourning could be seen as manipulative, while stoicism could be perceived as cold or unfeeling. These performances were scrutinized by the public and political rivals, turning personal sorrow into political theater. The way grief was expressed became part of the story, influencing how the deceased and their family were remembered. These embarrassing royal deaths and the circumstances around them challenge the traditional narratives of monarchy that emphasize power, control, and grandeur. They provide a glimpse into the very human experiences that lay beneath the surface mortality, vulnerability, and the unpredictable nature of life and death. The tales remind us that kings and queens, despite their elevated status, faced many of the same struggles as their subjects. These moments of fallibility enrich our understanding of history, adding depth and nuance to the stories of those who shaped the world. Looking at these stories also invites reflection on how history is recorded and remembered. Chroniclers and historians often framed royal deaths to serve political or moral narratives, sometimes embellishing details to create cautionary tales or legends. The fascination with scandal and embarrassment in royal deaths speaks to a human desire to see power humbled and to find connection with those who might otherwise seem distant. It challenges us to approach historical accounts with curiosity and skepticism, recognizing that the truth often lies somewhere between fact and storytelling. As we continue exploring these unusual and embarrassing royal deaths, we gain a richer perspective on the complexities of monarchy and the inevitable reality of human frailty. The stories that follow reveal not just the ends of rulers, but the social, political, and cultural contexts that shaped their lives and legacies. From scandalous poisonings and tragic mishaps to funerary disasters and emotional outbursts, these deaths offer lessons about power, mortality, and the ways in which history remembers its great stand, sometimes most vulnerable figures. Ultimately, these tales remind us that death is the great equalizer, capable of humbling even the most exalted. The embarrassing and strange endings of kings and queens invite us to see beyond the crown and throne to the human being beneath. In doing so, they connect us to the past in a deeply personal way, showing that history is as much about the messy and unpredictable moments as it is about triumph and glory. Royal deaths, as we have seen, were far from always the dignified and majestic events one might expect. Often, they were fraught with awkwardness, scandal, or downright bizarre circumstances that shattered the carefully maintained image of power and grace. In this part, we delve deeper into some particularly remarkable examples where monarchs met their end in ways that sparked rumors, mockery, or deep tragedy, reminding us once again that no crown is a shield against fate's cruel twists. Take, for instance, the fate of a well-known medieval king whose death became a source of both tragedy and unintended humor. This monarch, renowned for his fierce leadership and military successes, met his demise not on the battlefield, as one might expect, but in a most humiliating fashion. He is said to have died from injuries sustained after a fall during a hunt, but the story that spread among the people painted a more embarrassing picture. According to popular tales, his hunting cloak became entangled in a tree branch, and he was dragged along the ground by his horse. Such an end, so far removed from the valiant image he worked hard to project, was seized upon by critics and storytellers alike. The visual of a powerful king struggling and being pulled helplessly through the forest became a symbol of the fragile line between majesty and misfortune. This incident, true or exaggerated, illustrates the way royal deaths could quickly become part of popular culture, subject to retelling and embellishment that mixed fact and fiction. It also underscores how vulnerable monarchs were to the everyday dangers that shaped all human lives, no matter how exalted their station. The fallibility exposed in such deaths humanized kings in ways official histories often failed to capture, showing that beneath the armor and regalia were people subject to chance and accident. Scandal also played a prominent role in many royal deaths. Some monarchs' final moments were clouded by rumors of poisoning or foul play, fueling endless speculation and intrigue. The palace, often a hotbed of political machinations, provided fertile ground for conspiracies and plots. A queen might die suddenly, and whispers would immediately circulate about the involvement of a jealous rival or a scheming courtier. These suspicions, whether founded or baseless, became part of the narrative surrounding the death, adding a layer of mystery and scandal that eclipsed the actual cause. Such stories served multiple purposes. For some, they were a way to explain sudden or unexpected deaths in a world that struggled to understand medical science. For others, they were tools of political warfare, aimed at discrediting rivals or shifting blame. These narratives also captured the imagination of the public, who found in royal poisonings and secret plots a dramatic reflection of the dangers inherent in power. The blend of fact, rumor, and sensationalism turned royal deaths into stories that transcended mortality and became legends in their own right. Beyond political intrigue, the personal behaviors and choices of monarchs sometimes contributed to their embarrassing ends. Excessive indulgence in food, drink, or other pleasures was not uncommon, and some rulers paid the ultimate price for their hedonism. Imagine a king known for lavish banquets and heavy drinking who died suddenly after a particularly indulgent night. The story of such a death was often told with a mix of schadenfreude and moralizing, portraying the ruler's downfall as a cautionary tale about the dangers of excess. These accounts highlighted the tension between the public image of discipline and control and the private realities of human weakness. In some cases, royal deaths were marked by bizarre accidents that seemed almost surreal. One famous example involves a monarch who allegedly died after choking on a piece of food or being startled into a fatal heart attack. While these incidents might sound trivial, they carried significant weight in the historical record because they shattered the expectation of a dignified and heroic death. Instead, they revealed that even the most powerful were susceptible to the unpredictable nature of the body and mind. The strange and sometimes comical nature of these deaths made them memorable, ensuring their place in the annals of royal history. The aftermath of royal deaths could also be a source of embarrassment or controversy. Funerals, designed to celebrate and honor the deceased, occasionally descended into chaos or farce. Weather disasters, mishandled ceremonies, or disputes among mourners could tarnish the solemnity of these events. Imagine a royal funeral procession disrupted by a sudden storm or a coffin that became stuck en route to its final resting place. These mishaps became part of the narrative, sometimes interpreted as signs of divine displeasure or ill omen. They complicated the legacy of monarchs, showing that even in death, control over one's image could be elusive. Family dynamics played a crucial role in shaping the narrative around royal deaths. Grief was public and politicized, with expressions ranging from heartfelt sorrow to strategic displays aimed at influencing succession or public opinion. At times, family members' reactions could themselves become a source of scandal, whether through perceived extravagance, insufficient mourning, or public disputes. These personal dramas added emotional complexity to the royal death story, intertwining the personal with the political in ways that could amplify embarrassment or tragedy. These examples remind us that royal deaths, far from being mere historical footnotes, are windows into the intersection of power, personality, and human vulnerability. The embarrassment, scandal, and oddity that often accompanied these deaths reveal a more nuanced and relatable picture of monarchy. They challenge the myth of the flawless ruler and invite us to consider the ways in which history remembers both greatness and fallibility. Moreover, these stories encourage us to reflect on how history is constructed and remembered. The details that survive are often shaped by those with the power to record and interpret events, influenced by agendas and cultural attitudes. Sensational or embarrassing aspects of royal deaths might be emphasized or downplayed to serve particular narratives. Understanding this dynamic helps us appreciate the complexity of historical memory and the importance of critical engagement with sources. As we continue this exploration, the next stories will bring to light even more surprising and revealing accounts of royal deaths. From tragic accidents and scandalous affairs to political intrigue and public mishaps, these tales deepen our understanding of monarchy and mortality. They remind us that behind every crown is a human story, filled with unpredictability and sometimes irony. Ultimately, these narratives of embarrassing royal deaths serve a broader purpose. They humanize figures often seen only as symbols of power and authority. They remind us that no matter the status or wealth, life is fragile and death is often uncontrollable and unexpected. In revealing the messy, sometimes humiliating ends of monarchs, history connects us to the shared experience of mortality that unites all people, regardless of birth or station. Royal deaths often carry the weight of ceremony, history, and legend, yet some end in ways that are surprisingly human, awkward, or even scandalous. The stories of these monarchs who met their final moments in unexpected and embarrassing fashions offer us a glimpse into the frailty beneath the crown. They remind us that regardless of power or prestige, the unpredictability of death humbles all. In this chapter, we explore some of these moments where royalty was brought low by fate's strange sense of irony, misfortune, or human error. One particularly vivid example is that of a king whose demise was marked by a fatal indulgence. Known for his lavish lifestyle, sumptuous feasts, and a penchant for excess, this ruler met his end after consuming an enormous meal. While banquets were a display of wealth and status, they could also be dangerous. This king reportedly died from choking, a sudden and embarrassing end that shocked his court. The image of a monarch, surrounded by abundance, brought down by the very act of feasting, carries a heavy irony. It challenges the notion of royal invulnerability and underscores the fact that even kings are subject to the vulnerabilities of the body. The suddenness of such a death often created ripples far beyond the personal tragedy. It plunged kingdoms into uncertainty, as the unexpected loss of a ruler without clear succession plans opened the door to political strife. Courtiers and nobles would quickly maneuver to position themselves for influence, sometimes spreading rumors to strengthen their claims. The chaotic aftermath of an embarrassing royal death thus had tangible consequences for the stability of entire realms. These events show how personal misfortune could become a catalyst for larger historical shifts. In other cases, royal deaths were clouded by scandal, where the circumstances surrounding the end raised eyebrows and invited gossip. Imagine a queen whose last days were marked by whispers of secret lovers, poisonings, or betrayal. Whether true or fabricated, such stories added layers of intrigue and sensationalism that captivated contemporaries and later historians alike. These tales were often used to tarnish reputations or justify political agendas. The scandal surrounding a royal death could overshadow a monarch's achievements and become the defining aspect of their legacy. This blend of truth and rumor reveals the power of narrative in shaping history. Physical accidents also played a notable role in embarrassing royal deaths. Consider a king who died after a hunting accident that was as tragic as it was bizarre. Perhaps he slipped while pursuing game, or his horse bolted unexpectedly, causing a fatal fall. These deaths contrast sharply with the image of the strong and fearless monarch, revealing the fragile humanity underneath. Such accidents could be seen as almost farcical, turning a moment meant to demonstrate prowess and control into one of vulnerability and chaos. Yet for those witnessing the event, the impact was very real and often devastating. Even the aftermath of royal deaths could be a source of embarrassment or misfortune. Funerals and burial ceremonies intended to honor and immortalize the monarch sometimes went awry. Weather, mishandled logistics, or public disturbances could disrupt solemn proceedings. In some cases, tombs intended to be magnificent memorials were desecrated or poorly constructed, leading to further disgrace. These failures complicated the royal legacy, as the final act of remembrance became a scene of disorder or controversy. Such incidents remind us that even in death, the power to control one's image was limited. The behavior of surviving family members and courtiers also shaped the perception of royal deaths. Mourning was often a public display, and how grief was expressed could be interpreted as sincere or strategic. Dramatic outpourings of sorrow might be seen as political theater, while restrained responses could be criticized as callous. These dynamics turned royal funerals and memorials into stages where personal emotions intersected with political messaging. The complexity of these performances added to the layers of embarrassment or dignity surrounding the royal death. The impact of these embarrassing and scandalous royal deaths extends beyond mere historical anecdotes. They force us to reconsider the nature of monarchy and power, exposing the fragile and human side of rulers often portrayed as larger than life. The unpredictability and sometimes absurd nature of these deaths remind us that mortality is a great equalizer. No matter the riches, titles, or armies commanded, every monarch was vulnerable to the same frailties and accidents as anyone else. Moreover, these stories reveal the ways in which history is shaped by narrative. The details of royal deaths are often filtered through chroniclers and storytellers whose biases and intentions influence how events are recorded and remembered. Scandalous or embarrassing aspects may be exaggerated or downplayed depending on political contexts or popular tastes. The fascination with royal mishaps reflects a human desire to connect with the rulers on a personal level, to see them not just as symbols, but as flawed individuals. This interplay between fact and storytelling enriches our understanding of history. As we continue, the tales ahead will explore a variety of royal deaths marked by the unexpected, the scandalous, and the tragic. From monarchs undone by personal excess to those felled by accidents or intrigue, each story offers a unique perspective on the tension between royal image and reality. These narratives provide a deeper insight into the lives behind the crowns and the legacies shaped by their ends. In the end, the most embarrassing royal deaths teach us about the vulnerability inherent in human existence and the limits of power. They invite empathy and reflection, reminding us that history's greatest figures were people first, subject to the same unpredictable fate that touches us all. Through these stories, we gain a fuller picture of monarchy, not as an untouchable ideal, but as a complex, often fragile institution shaped by the very human lives at its center. The tales of royal deaths are often told with reverence and solemnity, but some endings stand out for their sheer oddity or embarrassment, revealing a very different side of monarchy. Imagine the pressures on a monarch to maintain a dignified image throughout their life, only to have that carefully crafted persona unravel in their final moments. These stories remind us that no matter how high the throne, the reality of death is often messy, unpredictable, and deeply human. One particularly fascinating case involves a monarch whose death became the subject of both scandal and dark humor. This ruler, celebrated for their commanding presence and influence, met their end in a way that shocked their court and subjects alike. The circumstances were bizarre. The monarch reportedly choked during a lavish banquet, a meal fit for kings, but ironically, the cause of his downfall. In a time when appearances mattered greatly, such an ignoble death was a source of whispered mockery and political ammunition for rivals. It highlighted how fragile the veneer of royal power could be when confronted with the simplest vulnerabilities of the human body. Stories like these often spread beyond the palace walls, entering popular culture and folklore. They became cautionary tales that underscored the limits of earthly power and the inevitability of mortality. The monarch's sudden and embarrassing demise served as a reminder to subjects that even those crowned with authority were not immune to misfortune. Such narratives could both humanize and undermine rulers, complicating their legacies in ways that official histories sometimes struggled to reconcile. Beyond accidental deaths, royal endings were frequently enveloped in scandal that fueled court intrigues and public gossip. Consider a queen whose final days were marred by rumors of poisoning or foul play. Whether these suspicions were founded or not, they cast a shadow over her memory and ignited fierce speculation about the true nature of her demise. In the highly politicized environment of royal courts, where alliances shifted like sand, such scandals could be weaponized to discredit factions or justify coups. The story of a suspicious death was more than mere rumor. It was a tool of power that shaped the course of history. Royalty also faced the dangers of personal excess, and some monarchs' deaths were directly linked to their own indulgences. Imagine a king who spent his last days battling the consequences of overindulgence in food, drink, or pleasures deemed unbecoming of his station. These stories often became moral lessons, warning future rulers and subjects alike about the perils of losing control. The contrast between the public image of disciplined authority and the private reality of human frailty was stark and sometimes scandalous. Such deaths challenged the ideal of the perfect monarch. exposing the human vulnerabilities hidden beneath the royal facade. Accidental deaths could be as humiliating as they were tragic. Picture a ruler who died not in battle or due to illness, but because of an everyday mishap, perhaps slipping on palace stairs, falling from a horse, or choking on food. These deaths defied expectations, turning what should have been moments of majesty into stories tinged with irony or even dark humor. They remind us that no matter the power wielded, fate could intervene in the most mundane and unexpected ways. Such incidents became part of the rich tapestry of royal lore, humanizing those often seen as distant and untouchable. The aftermath of royal deaths sometimes added further layers of embarrassment or complexity. Funerals intended as grand displays of honor occasionally faltered due to weather, mismanagement, or political disputes. Imagine a procession delayed by rain, a coffin damaged, or mourners clashing over protocol. These disruptions could cast doubt on the stability of the monarchy or be interpreted as ominous signs. The challenge of orchestrating a dignified farewell to a monarch was immense, and failures in this regard became part of the historical narrative, shaping public memory as much as the monarch's life had. Family dynamics played a crucial role in how royal deaths were perceived and remembered. Public mourning was both a personal and political act, and expressions of grief could be scrutinized for authenticity or motive. Dramatic displays of sorrow might be praised or ridiculed, while restrained emotions could be viewed with suspicion. These performances reflected the complex interplay between private loss and public expectation, turning mourning into a form of political theater. The way a royal family handled death influenced the legacy of the deceased and the future of the realm. These tales of embarrassing and scandalous royal deaths enrich our understanding of history by peeling back the layers of formality and power to reveal the deeply human experiences underneath. They challenge the myth of the flawless monarch and invite us to see rulers as individuals subject to the same uncertainties and weaknesses as anyone else. This perspective adds nuance to the study of monarchy, showing that legacy is shaped not only by achievement, but also by the unpredictable and often unflattering realities of life and death. Furthermore, these stories remind us that history is shaped by narrative and interpretation. The accounts of royal deaths are often filtered through the agendas of chroniclers and the tastes of audiences eager for scandal or moral lessons. Distinguishing fact from embellishment is a challenge, but the enduring fascination with these stories speaks to their power to connect us with the past in a visceral way. They reveal how power, mortality, and storytelling intertwine to create history's most memorable moments. As we continue to explore the lives and deaths of monarchs whose ends defied expectations, we gain insight into the fragility of power and the universality of human experience. These stories span continents and centuries, offering a diverse array of endings that are sometimes tragic, sometimes absurd, but always compelling. They remind us that behind the crowns were individuals whose final moments could be as unpredictable as the world they ruled. In embracing these narratives, we move beyond sanitized histories to appreciate the complexity and imperfection that define all human lives, including those of kings and queens. The most embarrassing royal deaths teach us that mortality is the great equalizer, capable of humbling even the mightiest. Through these stories, we find not only intrigue and entertainment, but also profound reflections on the nature of power, legacy, and the human condition. Royal deaths have long been moments charged with symbolism, ceremony, and profound significance. But as we have journeyed through these stories, it becomes clear that the final moments of many monarchs were far from the poised and noble scenes often imagined. Instead, they were marked by human frailty, scandal, bizarre accidents, and sometimes downright embarrassment. These endings reveal the complex realities beneath the crowns, reminding us that no matter how powerful or exalted, monarchs were subject to the same unpredictable forces of life and death that touch us all. Reflecting on these tales, it is evident that the image of monarchy is as much shaped by its endings as by its reigns. A king's or queen's death could alter the course of history, affect the stability of kingdoms, and influence the legacy left behind. When those deaths were marked by scandal or oddity, the ripples extended far beyond personal tragedy, impacting political alliances, public perceptions, and cultural memory. These stories demonstrate that mortality and misfortune do not respect status or ceremony, and sometimes the most powerful figures meet their fate in ways that seem at odds with their authority. Yet, within these moments of fallibility lies a profound humanity. The embarrassing, tragic, or scandalous deaths of monarchs connect us to them in ways that grand achievements and battles cannot. They remind us that behind the pomp and protocol were individuals subject to fear, pain, weakness, and accident. These stories break down the barriers of distance and time, offering glimpses of vulnerability that resonate across centuries. They make history accessible and relatable, showing that power is intertwined with imperfection and mortality. The ways in which these royal deaths have been recorded and remembered also invite reflection on the nature of history itself. The line between fact and fiction often blurs, with chroniclers, storytellers, and political actors shaping narratives to serve their own ends. Some tales of scandal and embarrassment may have been exaggerated or invented to tarnish reputations or entertain audiences. Understanding this dynamic encourages us to approach historical accounts critically while appreciating the rich tapestry of stories that history offers. These narratives, whether wholly true or partly myth, enrich our understanding of the past and the human condition. Moreover, the fascination with embarrassing royal deaths reveals much about society's relationship with power and mortality. These stories allow for a kind of collective schadenfreude, a way to see the mighty brought low, to find humor or caution in the misfortunes of the elite. They serve as reminders that no status can fully protect against the inevitable, providing comfort in the universality of death. At the same time, they challenge us to consider the ways in which history sanitizes or glorifies the lives of rulers, often obscuring the messiness and complexity of their realities. As we conclude this exploration, it is fitting to recognize that these stories, while sometimes humorous or tragic, are also deeply instructive. They teach us about the interplay between human vulnerability and political power, the shaping of legacy through both life and death, and the enduring impact of narrative on history. They invite empathy for individuals who, despite their grandeur, faced the same end that awaits all. They challenge the notion of infallible rulers and offer a more nuanced and honest view of monarchy. The legacy of these royal deaths, embroidered with scandal, tragedy, and unexpected endings, is a testament to the multifaceted nature of history. They are chapters that reveal the personal alongside the political, the human alongside the regal. Through these stories, we gain a richer, more textured understanding of the past, one that honors both achievement and imperfection. In the final analysis, the most embarrassing royal deaths remind us that history is not just about kings and queens as distant figures of authority, but about people whose lives and deaths were shaped by the same forces that govern all human existence. These stories close the distance between past and present, crown and commoner, legend and reality. They teach us that no matter how high the throne, mortality is the ultimate equalizer, and in that truth we find both humility and connection. As the pages of history turn beyond these tales, the echoes of those final moments linger, inviting us to remember the full humanity behind the grandeur. The crowns may tarnish, the thrones may crumble, but the stories of life, death, and sometimes embarrassing final acts endure, reminding us that history is as much about the unexpected and the flawed as it is about triumph and glory. You wake up in darkness, the cold stone walls pressing in on you from all sides, the dampness seeping into your bones like a relentless chill that never truly leaves. The air is thick with the smell of mold, human waste, and decay, a suffocating blend that makes it hard to breathe, let alone think. You are a prisoner in a medieval dungeon, and this is your new reality, one defined by cold rats' despair and the constant gnawing of uncertainty. Your mind races, trying to recall how you ended up here, but the fear and confusion make it difficult to focus. All you know is that this cold, dark cell will be your world for the foreseeable future. The floor beneath you is uneven stone, damp and slick with moisture, and there is no bed or straw for comfort, only the bare floor where you must try to rest. You feel the cold seeping through your thin clothing, chilling you to the core. You pull your arms close, trying to conserve warmth, but the chill is relentless. The stone walls seem to absorb any sound you make, amplifying the silence and making the cell feel like a tomb. There is no sunlight, no fresh air, and no way to know how much time has passed. You lose track of days, your sense of time dissolving into an endless bleak now. Rats scurry in the shadows, their small, sharp teeth a constant threat. You hear their tiny claws scraping against the walls and floor, and occasionally they brush against your skin, causing you to flinch in terror. These vermin are not just pests, they are carriers of disease and death, and their presence is a grim reminder of the filth and neglect that define your imprisonment. You try to keep still, to avoid attracting their attention, but there is little you can do to protect yourself in this miserable environment. Your hunger gnaws at you relentlessly. Food, when it comes, is meager and foul, often stale bread soaked in sour water or bits of moldy meat. Sometimes there is nothing at all. You learn quickly that complaining or begging will only invite cruelty from the guards, so you endure in silence, your body wasting away. The lack of nourishment weakens you, making even the simplest movements painful. Your stomach twists with hunger, and yet you know that pleading for more will likely result in punishment or humiliation. You cling to whatever scraps you are given, each morsel a precious lifeline in this desperate place. Water is a scarce and uncertain blessing. You drink from a small bucket, the water often stagnant or mixed with dirt. Dehydration becomes a slow torment, your throat dry and cracked. You long for fresh water, for the simple pleasure of washing your face or quenching your thirst properly, but such luxuries are denied to you. The bucket is also your toilet, a humiliating and degrading necessity that compounds the sense of helplessness and despair. You feel trapped not only by the walls, but by the indignities forced upon you every hour. The guards are a constant, ominous presence. Their footsteps echo in the corridors, a sound that can bring fear or false hope. You never know if they are coming to bring food, water, or to inflict punishment. Sometimes they shout insults or threats through the bars or grates, reminding you of your lowly status and the power they wield over your fate. You learn to suppress any sign of fear or weakness, knowing that showing vulnerability can invite brutality. Your world shrinks to the small cell and the moments when the guards choose to interact with you. Loneliness is one of the most crushing aspects of your imprisonment. There are no companions, no voices except your own thoughts and the occasional distant clatter of chains or footsteps. You struggle to hold on to your sanity, using memories, prayers, or imagined conversations to keep your mind from unraveling. The isolation presses on you like a physical weight, making time stretch endlessly. You yearn for any human contact, even the briefest interaction, to remind you that you still exist outside this dark pit. Fear is your constant companion. Fear of the unknown, fear of pain, fear of death. You do not know how long you will remain here or what fate awaits you. You may be destined for execution, torture, or a slow death by neglect. Every sound can trigger panic, a distant scream, the clanging of iron doors, the jingle of keys. Sleep is fitful and filled with nightmares. You try to summon courage, but despair threatens to overwhelm you. You wonder if you will ever see sunlight again, feel fresh air on your skin, or taste food that is not rancid. You grasp at small threads of hope whenever they appear. Perhaps a friend will find a way to secure your release, or a kind guard will offer a moment of mercy. Maybe your sentence will be commuted, or you will be transferred to better conditions. These hopes keep you alive, even when the darkness seems endless. You cling to prayers for deliverance, for justice, or simply for strength to endure another day. In the depths of despair, you find a flicker of defiance, a determination not to let this place break your spirit completely. This is what it means to be a prisoner in a medieval dungeon, a life stripped to its barest elements, where cold, rats, hunger, and despair are constant companions. It is a world where time loses meaning, and survival depends on enduring the unbearable and finding strength in the smallest glimmers of hope. As you lie on the cold stone floor, waiting for whatever comes next, you realize that this prison is not just of walls and iron, but of fear and isolation. Yet even here, deep within this darkness, the human spirit struggles to survive. You awaken to the same cold, damp stone walls enclosing your world, the thick darkness pressing in from every side like a physical weight. The silence of the dungeon is broken only by the occasional skitter of rats or the distant echoes of footsteps that remind you there is a life beyond these confines, a life you desperately crave. Your body aches from the hard floor beneath you and the nights spent shivering under a threadbare blanket, if you are lucky enough to have one. Hunger gnaws at your insides, And the hunger is more than just for food. It is a hunger for freedom, for warmth, for hope. Your mind struggles to hold on to reality as the endless days blend together. Time here is a strange and cruel concept, stretching indefinitely without markers or light. You try to recall the last time you saw sunlight or felt fresh air on your skin, but those memories fade like distant dreams. Instead, the present dominates each hour, a test of endurance and will. You listen intently for sounds that may indicate mercy or punishment. A guard's footsteps growing closer can bring dread or a flicker of hope, depending on what you have learned from their past visits. Sometimes they bring scraps of food, sometimes nothing but cruelty. The meager food you receive is barely enough to keep you alive. Stale bread that is hardened from days of neglect, water that smells faintly of mold, and the occasional bit of cold gray stew that tastes of ash and rot. Your stomach twists painfully with hunger, yet you dare not complain. You have learned that any sign of weakness may invite harsher treatment or a longer sentence. The guards are indifferent to your suffering, often cruel and capricious. They see you not as a person but as a thing, a nuisance to be controlled or discarded. Your clothes are thin, torn, and soaked with moisture. The chill penetrates your bones and seems to sap your strength and will. You curl into yourself for warmth, but the cold is relentless. You dream of fire, of warmth radiating through your body, but the dungeon offers none. The cold steals sleep from you, leaving only restless tossing and turning, haunted by shadows and echoes. Every noise makes you startle: the drip of water, the rustle of rats, the distant clang of iron doors opening and closing. The rats are your constant tormentors. They crawl over your body as you lie trying to rest, their cold feet touching your skin in the darkness. You know they carry disease and filth, yet they are your only companions in this forsaken place. Sometimes they nibble on scraps left behind or on the wounds you cannot treat. Their presence is a grim reminder of your neglect and the filth that defines this prison. You shiver not only from cold, but from the dread of the diseases they might bring, the infections that could claim you without mercy. Your body grows weaker day by day. The lack of proper food and rest takes its toll. Every movement aches, joints stiffen, and wounds both old and new fester without treatment. Illness spreads easily in this place, yet there is no healer, no medicine. You become a prisoner of your own failing body as much as of these walls. Fever may overtake you, and there is little relief beyond the cold stone floor. You wonder how many others have died here in silence, forgotten and discarded. Loneliness is perhaps the hardest burden of all. There is no one to speak to, no friendly voice or comforting touch. The isolation erodes your mind, your memories become confused, and your sense of self frays. You talk to yourself or to imagined companions, seeking to hold on to sanity. The darkness seems to swallow hope, and despair creeps in like a poison. You long for any human contact, a word, a glance, a kindness, but the dungeon offers only silence and neglect. Fear is your constant companion. Fear of the unknown fate awaiting you, fear of pain, fear of death. You do not know why you were imprisoned. Was it justice, betrayal, or mistake? The uncertainty gnaws at you. You fear the tortures you have heard whispered about, the public humiliations, the slow starvation. Every noise in the corridors could mean your torment or your doom. You pray for mercy, for release, but the gods seem silent here. You wonder if your life will end in this darkness, alone and forgotten. In these darkest moments, you cling to memories of better times, the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of loved ones, the smell of bread baking, the simple comfort of a soft bed. These memories are fragile but precious, your last connection to the world beyond these walls. They remind you that you are still human, still alive, still capable of hope, even when all seems lost. Small acts become your lifelines. You shift your position to ease the pain, whisper prayers, or focus on breathing steadily. You conserve your strength, rationing your energy for whatever trials may come. Sometimes you speak quietly to yourself, recounting stories or reciting lines from prayers to keep your mind engaged. These acts, though simple, are defiant ways to resist being swallowed whole by despair. You dream of freedom, not just of the physical chains, but of this prison of fear and loneliness. You imagine stepping into sunlight, breathing fresh air, feeling warmth on your skin again. The thought of release, no matter how distant or uncertain, sustains you. It is a spark in the darkness, a promise that this is not the end. This is what it means to be a prisoner in a medieval dungeon, a slow unraveling, a test of endurance against cold, hunger, vermin, and isolation. It is a place where time loses meaning and hope is both fragile and fierce. Yet even in this desolation, the human spirit fights to survive, clinging to whatever light it can find. You lie on the cold floor, battered but unbroken, waiting for another day in the darkness, holding on to the slimmest thread of hope that someday, somehow, you will be free again. The dungeon's darkness becomes so familiar that it almost feels like a second skin, wrapping around you and swallowing every hope for escape. Days, or maybe weeks, pass in a blur of misery and aching silence. The cold stone walls, slick with damp, seem to close in tighter with every breath you take. You begin to lose track of time as light fades from memory, leaving only the cold and the creeping dread. The rats grow bolder, sometimes nibbling at your fingers when you are too weak to move away, their tiny teeth sharp and unforgiving. You try not to scream or flinch, knowing the guards show no mercy for those who make noise. Instead, you curl into a ball, trying to make yourself as small and invisible as possible, hoping to disappear into the shadows that consume you. Your body wastes away. The meager scraps of food-hard bread, some sour broth, maybe a few stale vegetables barely keep you alive. Hunger gnaws at your belly relentlessly, making your stomach twist and cramp in agony. Your bones feel hollow, your muscles weak and trembling. The chill sinks deeper, as if the cold has seeped into your very soul. Movement becomes an exhausting effort. When the guards open the heavy iron door to deliver whatever meager sustenance or vile water they deem fit, you muster the last of your strength to eat, knowing it may be the only nourishment for days. But even as you eat, your body resists. Sickness twists your stomach, and weakness overwhelms you. You lie back on the damp stone floor, shivering, heart pounding with fear and exhaustion. The stench is suffocating. The dungeon reeks of unwashed bodies, rot, and human waste. The bucket in the corner is your only toilet, and the thought of relieving yourself in such filth fills you with shame and disgust. You force yourself to use it quickly, wiping your face and hands with the tattered cloth you clutched desperately. Hygiene is impossible here, and your skin is raw and crawling with dirt and insects. The sores on your body burn, but there is no ointment or care. The constant scratching leaves bloody trails, and sometimes the rats find these wounds irresistible, their bites painful and dangerous. You try to ignore the pain, but it lingers, a reminder that your body is failing you, and that death is always just a breath away. The guards are cruel shadows in your nightmare. Their footsteps echo ominously down the corridors, heralding moments of terror or humiliation. They come sometimes to mock you, shout insults, or strike with a whip or club for the slightest perceived misstep. They hold your fate with cold indifference, their faces hidden in shadow or twisted with contempt. You learn to hide your fear, keeping your eyes downcast and your body still, hoping to avoid their wrath. But sometimes, no matter how silent or submissive you are, their cruelty finds you. The pain of their blows is sharp and swift, yet it pales compared to the anguish of their mockery and the coldness in their eyes. Your thoughts swirl in the darkness, a tempest of memories, regrets, and desperate hope. You recall the life you once knew, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of friends and family, the taste of fresh bread and wine. These memories sustain you, flickering like fragile flames in the dark. You remember your name, your face, your dreams, refusing to let the dungeon erase your identity. You whisper your own story aloud when you are alone, telling yourself that you are more than this cell, that freedom is still possible. These whispered words are a lifeline, a thread connecting you to the world outside and to your own humanity. The isolation is the cruelest torment. You lie awake, listening to the distant sounds of the castle, the clanging of armor, the barking of dogs, the chatter of guards. You imagine the lives unfolding beyond these walls, full of light, color, and movement. You yearn for a glimpse of the sky, a breath of fresh air, a human touch. The silence inside your cell presses down on you like a physical weight, threatening to crush your spirit. You reach for faith, praying to any gods who might hear you, begging for mercy, for justice, for release. Sometimes your prayers feel like echoes lost in the darkness. Other times they are the only comfort you have. Your mind plays tricks on you. The shadows seem to move, the rats appear to whisper secrets, and the walls seem to close in closer still. You struggle to hold onto reality, to remember what is real and what is fear. You cling to fragments of sanity, counting stones on the floor, recalling lines from prayers or poetry, focusing on your breathing. These small rituals become acts of defiance, reminders that your mind is still yours. You know that madness is a slow threat here, creeping silently like the cold that invades your bones. You fight to stay whole, even as the darkness tries to swallow you. Sometimes a faint hope flickers, a new prisoner arrives, bringing news from the outside world, or a guard shows a rare moment of kindness, slipping a scrap of bread or a cup of cleaner water. These moments are precious beyond measure. They remind you that you are not forgotten, that life continues beyond the stone walls. You grasp these chances, savoring the briefest human connection, letting it fuel your will to survive. You dream of rescue, of release, of the chance to breathe free air again. Though the odds seem impossibly stacked against you, this hope is a stubborn ember that refuses to die. You realize that survival in this place depends not only on endurance, but on the ability to hold on to hope and identity. Each day you wage a silent battle against despair and decay. You remind yourself that you are more than a prisoner, more than the dirt and filth that surround you. Your spirit, though battered, remains unbroken. This place may hold your body captive, but it cannot imprison your soul. As you close your eyes, trying to rest, the darkness presses in once more. Yet, even here, in this forsaken dungeon, the human spirit fights to endure. You are trapped, yes, but not defeated. Your story is one of survival against all odds, a testament to the strength that lies hidden in the darkest places. Tomorrow, you will awaken to the same cold walls and endless silence, but you will also awaken with a flicker of hope still burning quietly inside you. You lie on the cold, damp stone floor, your body aching and your spirit fraying under the relentless weight of captivity. The walls around you, thick with centuries of neglect and human suffering, seem to absorb every whispered prayer, every desperate thought you muster in the dark. The stench of mold and decay fills the air, making it hard to breathe, and the constant skittering of rats reminds you that you are not alone, but companionship comes in the cruelest form here. Every night feels endless, the cold seeping deep into your bones, and your thoughts swirl between hope and despair, never resting, never quiet. In this pit of darkness and silence, you become acutely aware of every small detail, the chill of the floor beneath you, the scratching noises just beyond your reach, the faint flicker of light from a torch outside the heavy iron door. These tiny things are your only connection to a world beyond the prison, a world you cling to even as it feels impossibly far away. Your hunger gnaws at you, a relentless torment that never lets up. The few scraps of food tossed your way are stale and meager, barely enough to keep the starvation at bay. You ration what little you have, chewing slowly and savoring each bite as if it were a feast. Your body grows weaker with each passing day, muscles wasting and energy fading, but you do not give in. The pain in your stomach is a constant reminder of your fragility, yet also of your will to survive. You imagine tasting fresh bread, juicy fruit, or warm meals again, but these thoughts sometimes feel like cruel illusions. Still, you cling to them, because hope is the thread that keeps you from unraveling completely. Water is a rare and precious commodity. The bucket they give you is often filled with murky liquid, sometimes so foul you hesitate to drink. Thirst torments you, drying your mouth and cracking your lips. You dream of clear, cool springs and rain falling gently on your face. Yet the dungeon offers no relief, only stale air and the bitter taste of despair. You know that dehydration can kill faster than hunger, so you drink whatever you are given, forcing down the bitter liquid even when your body protests. The bucket also serves as your toilet, a humiliating reminder of your degradation. You force yourself to use it quickly, and then wipe your hands on the rag you clutch, desperate to hold on to whatever shred of dignity remains. Your body is a battleground. Cuts and bruises from guards' blows sometimes refuse to heal in this cold, damp environment. The sores itch and burn, and with no medicine, infection is a constant threat. Rats and insects sometimes find their way into your wounds, worsening the pain. You try to clean yourself as best you can, but the lack of fresh water and proper hygiene makes it nearly impossible. The chill worsens every ache, and you find yourself shivering even when the dungeon seems to grow warmer. The physical suffering is overwhelming, yet you learn to endure it, to steel yourself against the waves of pain that threaten to consume you. Your mind is the only refuge you have, but even it feels fragile under the relentless pressure of solitude and fear. Days bleed into nights, and time loses meaning. You try to hold on to memories of loved ones, of places you once knew, of moments when laughter and light filled your life. These memories keep you tethered to who you were before this darkness swallowed you whole. Sometimes you recite prayers or fragments of poems you once heard, using rhythm and repetition to stave off the creeping madness. You speak softly to yourself, telling stories or imagining conversations with friends long gone. These small acts are vital, reminders that your mind is still your own, that you are still a person, not just a prisoner. Fear is constant and suffocating. You do not know what fate awaits you. Execution, torture, or indefinite imprisonment all loom as possibilities. Every sound a distant scream, the clanging of iron gates, the approaching footsteps of guards sets your heart pounding. The uncertainty gnaws at you worse than the cold or hunger. You wonder if anyone remembers you beyond these walls, or if your disappearance has been noted only as a forgotten case. Nightmares haunt your sleep, mixing memories with imagined horrors. Yet even in the depths of terror, you find moments to breathe, to calm your mind, and gather your strength for the day ahead. Occasionally, the door opens, and a guard steps inside, the flicker of a torch illuminating their grim face. Their visits bring a mix of dread and fragile hope. Sometimes they bring food or water, sometimes a cruel word or a blow. You learn to hide your reactions, to show neither fear nor pain, for these can be used against you. You watch their expressions, trying to read their intentions, clinging to any kindness, however rare. A small smile or a moment of hesitation can be enough to fuel your hope that relief might come, even if it is fleeting. You cling to these moments like a lifeline, desperate for any sign that this nightmare might end. Your thoughts often drift to freedom. You imagine slipping away from this place, running through open fields, feeling sunlight and wind on your skin. These daydreams sustain you, giving your mind a fragile escape from the crushing reality. Sometimes you plan escape routes, although you know the chances are slim. The maze of stone corridors, the guards, and the heavy iron doors seem insurmountable barriers. Yet, in your heart, the desire to be free burns fiercely. It is this longing that keeps you alive, that whispers to you in the darkest hours that you are more than this prison. Despite the despair, you find moments of clarity and resolve. You remind yourself that you are still here, still breathing, still fighting. Your survival is an act of defiance against the cruelty that seeks to break you. You cherish the smallest comforts, a patch of warmth on the stone floor, a brief silence without rats or guards, a memory that brings a tear or a smile. These moments, though rare, remind you of your humanity and your strength. You hold on to them, nurturing the spark of hope that refuses to die. As the cold night deepens, you wrap your arms around yourself, trying to ward off the chill and the darkness. You whisper a prayer, a promise, or simply a plea for strength. You are alone, but not defeated. Your body may be trapped, but your spirit soars beyond these walls, clinging to the belief that one day this darkness will lift. For now, you endure, a prisoner not just of stone and iron, but of time and fate, holding on to hope in a place designed to extinguish it. The cold continues to seep into your bones as the days drag on, each moment heavier than the last. The dungeon seems endless, a vast void of stone and shadows where time itself has lost all meaning. You awaken to the same darkness, the same stifling air thick with the smell of mold and rot. Your body is frail now, the muscles once strong and vital slowly wasting away under the weight of neglect and starvation. Every breath is a struggle, every movement an effort, but you hold on. You clutch tightly to the fragile thread of hope that keeps your spirit from breaking entirely, even as despair threatens to swallow you whole. Hunger gnaws relentlessly at your stomach, an unending ache that never dulls. The small scraps of food that occasionally arrive are barely enough to keep you alive. The stale bread is hard and tasteless, the thin broth watery and foul. You chew slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a feast, knowing that you may go days without anything else. Your hands tremble as you eat, the cold and weakness making even this basic act difficult. You are consumed by the thought of food, fresh bread, ripe fruit, warm meals. Luxuries you once took for granted now seem like distant dreams. Hunger is a constant companion, reminding you how vulnerable and fragile you have become. The water you drink is equally scarce and often foul. The bucket used for drinking and washing is rarely cleaned, and the liquid it holds is murky and stale. You hesitate to drink, knowing it may worsen your illness, but thirst is a cruel master that cannot be denied. Your lips are cracked and bleeding, your throat dry and sore. You long for clean water, for the feel of it rushing down your throat and cooling your parched body. Instead, you must make do with the meager supply, knowing that every drop is a precious resource in this desolate place. The thought of fresh rain, cool streams, or even a simple well fills you with longing. Your skin is raw and blistered from the damp cold and the filth that surrounds you. Cuts and sores refuse to heal, and infections creep silently into your flesh. The rats and vermin are relentless, sometimes gnawing at your wounds, spreading disease and pain. You try to brush them away, but exhaustion and weakness make even this simple defense difficult. You shiver uncontrollably, the cold seeming to seep into your very soul. The stone floor offers no comfort, its hardness and dampness biting into your tired body. You curl up, trying to conserve what little warmth you have left, wishing for a soft bed or even a scrap of cloth to shield you from the chill. Your mind wanders through memories of better times, fragments of a life that now seems impossibly distant. You recall the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter in the marketplace, the scent of fresh bread baking in the ovens. These memories are bittersweet, a reminder of what has been lost and what might never return. You cling to them desperately, whispering fragments of songs or prayers to keep your mind from unraveling. Your thoughts become your refuge, a fragile sanctuary where hope still flickers, even if faint and fragile. The loneliness is suffocating. There are no voices to break the silence except your own, no friendly touch or comforting presence. The isolation gnaws at your sanity, threatening to unravel the threads of your mind. You speak softly to yourself or imagine conversations with loved ones, seeking to stave off the crushing weight of solitude. You know that the darkness is not just outside your cell, but inside your heart as well, yet you refuse to surrender to despair. You fight to hold on to your identity, your memories, your hope. You are still a person, still a soul beyond these stone walls. The guards remain your tormentors and your jailers. Their footsteps echo down the corridors, each step a reminder of the power they wield over your fate. Sometimes they come to mock or beat you, other times to deliver scant rations or cruel words. You learn to hide your fear and pain, knowing that any sign of weakness invites greater suffering. You watch their faces from moments of mercy, though such kindness is rare and fleeting. The guards are shadows of cruelty and indifference, enforcing the cold justice of the dungeon with brutal efficiency. Your thoughts often turn to freedom, a distant and elusive dream. You imagine the moment when the heavy iron door will open, when you will step out into the sunlight and breathe free air again. These visions sustain you, giving your heart the courage to endure another day. You picture running through open fields, feeling the warmth of the sun, hearing the songs of birds. Though the chances of escape seem impossibly small, the hope remains a lifeline, a flicker of light in the endless darkness. It is this hope that keeps you alive, that whispers to you that this prison is not your final destiny. You dream of reunion with loved ones, of laughter and comfort. The faces of family and friends visit your mind, filling you with warmth and sorrow. You imagine the joy of embracing them again, of sharing stories and meals. These dreams are bittersweet but vital, reminding you that you are not forgotten. They remind you that, beyond these walls, a world of love and life exists, waiting for you. You hold on to these visions tightly, using them to fight the despair that threatens to consume you. Each day, you engage in small rituals to preserve your sanity. You count the stones in your cell, trace patterns on the floor, recite prayers or lines of poetry. These acts give you a sense of control and order in a place designed to strip you of both. You find strength in the rhythm of your breath, in the steady beating of your heart. Though your body is weak and your surroundings cruel, your spirit remains unbroken. You are a survivor, a fighter, a soul determined not to be erased by the darkness. As night falls, the cold deepens, and the dungeon becomes a tomb of shadows and silence. You wrap yourself in whatever scraps of cloth you have, drawing your knees to your chest, trying to hold warmth close. You whisper a prayer for strength, for mercy, for deliverance. You remind yourself that this too shall pass, that the dawn will come, and when it does, you will face it with whatever courage remains. For even in the darkest prisons, the human spirit burns bright, refusing to be extinguished. You close your eyes and wait for the light, holding on to hope like a precious flame in the night. You awaken once again to the cold, damp stone beneath you, the shadows of the dungeon pressing in as if to swallow you whole. The days have blurred into a relentless monotony of darkness, hunger, and pain. Your body, weakened by starvation and exposure, aches in every joint and muscle. Yet, despite this suffering, your mind fights desperately to cling to hope and sanity. Each breath is a victory, each heartbeat a reminder that you are still alive, still resisting the despair that seeks to claim you. In the silence of this prison, your thoughts become your only refuge, a place where memories and dreams swirl together, keeping your spirit flickering against the suffocating darkness. The dungeon's dampness is a constant enemy, invading your skin and chilling your bones to the marrow. Your clothes, thin and torn, do little to protect you from the cold that seeps relentlessly into your very core. You curl up as tightly as possible, trying to hold warmth close, but the stone floor offers no comfort, and the chill becomes a dull ache that never truly fades. You recall the warmth of the sun on your skin, the gentle breeze through trees, the simple pleasure of a fire's heat, all luxuries lost to this place. Yet those memories sustain you, moments of light in an otherwise unyielding darkness. Rats continue to torment you, scurrying over your body in search of scraps, sometimes nibbling on the sores that have festered from neglect and infection. Their tiny teeth bite sharply, bringing fresh pain amid your exhaustion. The vermin are carriers of disease, adding to the ever-present threat of illness. You shudder at their touch, but cannot fend them off completely. The sounds of their claws scraping the stone echo in the silence, a grim reminder that even in solitude, you are not alone. This cruel companionship is a stark contrast to the warmth and comfort you once knew, making your imprisonment feel even more desolate. Your hunger remains an unending torment. The meager food you receive, stale bread, thin gruel, or scraps of questionable origin, provides little nourishment. Your stomach twists and cramps relentlessly, a gnawing pain that never abates. Sometimes you go days without eating, the pangs growing sharper and more unbearable. Your body weakens, your strength fades, and simple movements become Herculean tasks. Yet, even as your flesh wastes away, your will to survive burns fiercely. You clutch onto the smallest hopes, the faintest promises of freedom, as if they were lifelines in a sea of despair. Water is a scarce and often filthy resource. The bucket from which you drink is rarely cleaned, and the water within tastes foul and stagnant. Despite this, your thirst drives you to drink, no matter how bitter or contaminated the liquid may be. Your lips crack and bleed, your throat feels raw and swollen. The lack of hydration compounds your weakness, but the need to stay alive outweighs any discomfort. You long for fresh, cool water, something you once took for granted but now seem unlikely to taste again. This scarcity is yet another reminder of your fragility in this harsh environment. Your body bears the marks of neglect and abuse, cuts and bruises inflicted by guards or self-inflicted in moments of despair refuse to heal in the damp cold. Infections spread quietly, causing fever and pain that no remedy can soothe. You scratch at the relentless itching of sores and lice, only to cause more wounds that worsen your suffering. The skin grows raw and inflamed, and sometimes you wonder how much longer your battered body can endure. Yet, even as your physical strength dwindles, your determination to live remains steadfast, a silent rebellion against the cruelty surrounding you. The guards are the ever-present agents of your torment. Their footsteps, heavy and purposeful, echo ominously through the corridors, heralding moments of pain or fleeting kindness. Their faces, often obscured by shadows or hardened by cruelty, offer no comfort. Sometimes they deliver your meager rations with a sneer or a slap. Other times they strike you without cause, reveling in the power they wield over your helplessness. You have learned to hide your fear and pain, to mask your vulnerability, knowing that any sign of weakness invites further suffering. Their presence is a reminder that your fate lies entirely in their hands. Isolation gnaws at your mind as relentlessly as hunger eats at your body. There are no companions here, no voices other than your own thoughts and the distant noises of the dungeon. The silence is oppressive, stretching endlessly and pressing heavily on your sanity. You find yourself talking to yourself, whispering prayers, recounting memories, or inventing stories just to break the crushing quiet. Your mind becomes both a refuge and a tormentor, weaving hope and despair in equal measure. You struggle to maintain your grip on reality, fearing that madness lurks just beyond the edge of your consciousness. Despite the desolation, you cling to memories of freedom and life beyond these walls. You recall the warmth of the sun, the laughter of friends, the simple pleasures of a warm meal and clean clothes. These recollections are fragile treasures, shimmering faintly in the darkness. They remind you of who you are beyond this prison, anchoring you to your identity and humanity. You whisper these memories to yourself like prayers or mantras, drawing strength from the past to endure the present. Hope, though battered, flickers stubbornly within you. You imagine release, rescue, or even death as a merciful escape from this torment. Each of these possibilities holds its own comfort, a promise of an end to suffering. You dream of the day the heavy iron door will swing open, the moment you step into sunlight and breathe fresh air again. Though such visions sometimes feel distant or impossible, they are the lifeblood of your endurance. It is hope that fuels your survival, that defies the darkness and cold that seek to extinguish you. You engage in small rituals to preserve your sanity. Counting the stones in your cell, tracing patterns on the floor, reciting prayers or fragments of poetry become acts of quiet rebellion. They offer structure to the chaos and give your mind a semblance of control. You focus on your breath, steadying yourself in moments of panic. These rituals remind you that despite the cruelty and neglect, you remain a thinking, feeling human being. Your spirit, though battered, remains unbroken. As the darkness deepens and the dungeon grows colder, you wrap your arms tightly around yourself, seeking warmth and comfort. You whisper prayers, promises, and pleas for strength, holding on to the fragile ember of hope that one day this nightmare will end. Though trapped within these stone walls and fettered by chains, your spirit soars beyond, yearning for freedom and life. This story of suffering is also one of courage, a testament to the resilience of the human soul even in the darkest of places. You close your eyes and wait for the dawn, knowing that with it comes another chance to endure. The cold seems to settle into your very bones, a relentless chill that no amount of curling or shivering can chase away. The stone floor beneath you is hard and unforgiving, offering no respite from the aching that has taken root in your muscles and joints. You lie awake through the long hours of the night, the silence broken only by the distant drip of water or the faint scurrying of rats. Your mind drifts between memories of a life once lived and the bleak reality of your imprisonment. You wonder if your name still carries weight beyond these walls, or if you have become little more than a forgotten shadow, lost to the world. Yet even in the depths of despair, a stubborn spark of hope flickers inside you, refusing to be extinguished. Hunger gnaws relentlessly at your stomach, a cruel reminder that your body is failing under the weight of neglect and starvation. The meager rations you receive are barely enough to keep the worst pangs at bay. Stale bread, thin gruel, or the occasional scrap of spoiled meat are all that you can count on. Your fingers tremble as you clutch the food, chewing slowly to make it last, knowing there may be no more for days. Your body wastes away, muscles weakening, skin growing pale and thin. Yet, in spite of the physical toll, your will to survive burns fiercely. You remind yourself that as long as you breathe, there is still a chance for freedom, for life beyond these walls. Water, too, is a scarce and often foul resource. The bucket you use for drinking and washing is rarely cleaned, and the water within often tastes stale or brackish. Despite the unpleasantness, you drink when you can, your throat parched and cracked. You dream of cool springs and fresh rain, but the dungeon offers only the bitter taste of despair. Each gulp is both a necessity and a punishment, a reminder of the harshness of your confinement. The bucket serves also as your toilet, an indignity that weighs heavily on your spirit. You hurry through these humiliations, trying to preserve what dignity remains in a place designed to strip it away. Your body bears the scars of abuse and neglect. Cuts and bruises, inflicted by guards or the roughness of the walls, refuse to heal in this cold, damp environment. Infections creep silently, bringing fever and pain that no remedy can ease. You scratch at the relentless itching caused by lice and other vermin, knowing that this only worsens your wounds. The skin becomes raw and broken, the pain a constant companion. Yet, even as your physical strength diminishes, your determination to endure does not falter. You fight against the slow decay, holding on to the hope that relief or rescue may yet come. The guards are a shadowy presence, their footsteps echoing through the corridors with ominous regularity. Their faces are often obscured by hoods or iron helmets, but you know their cruelty all too well. Sometimes they bring food or water, but more often their visits bring pain or humiliation. You have learned to hide your fear, to mask your suffering, knowing that any sign of weakness invites further torment. Their words are sharp and biting, their blows swift and merciless, yet despite their power, you refuse to be broken. You cling to your humanity in the face of their brutality, a silent act of rebellion in this forsaken place. Isolation is the most profound torment of all. There are no voices but your own, no comforting touch or familiar face. The silence presses down, heavy and unyielding, threatening to crush your mind. You talk to yourself to stave off the madness, whispering prayers, recounting memories, or inventing conversations. Your thoughts become your only companions, both saviors and tormentors. You struggle to hold onto reality, fearing that the darkness may claim your sanity as surely as it imprisons your body. Yet you persist, using your mind as a sanctuary against the crushing weight of solitude. Memories of freedom and life beyond these walls haunt you. You recall the warmth of sunlight, the laughter of loved ones, the simple joys of a meal shared or a song sung. These recollections are fragile yet precious, flickering like distant stars in a night sky. They remind you that you are more than this cell, more than the dirt and despair that surround you. You whisper these memories to yourself, nurturing them like a fragile flame. They are a lifeline, connecting you to a world that still exists beyond the dungeon's darkness. Hope remains your strongest defense. You dream of the day the heavy iron door will open, the moment you step out into the fresh air and sunlight. Though the chance seems remote, this vision sustains you. It is a promise that your suffering will end, that your story is not finished. You imagine reunion with family and friends, the comfort of warm embraces and familiar voices. These dreams are bittersweet, filled with longing and pain, but they are also a testament to your enduring spirit. They remind you that even in the darkest places, light can be found. You create small rituals to maintain your sanity, counting the stones on the floor, tracing patterns with your fingers, reciting prayers or lines of poetry. These acts give you a semblance of control, a way to impose order on chaos. You focus on your breath, steadying yourself in moments of fear or despair. These rituals become anchors, keeping you tethered to your identity and humanity. Though your body is imprisoned, your mind remains free, a beacon of resilience against the darkness. As night falls and the dungeon grows colder, you wrap yourself in whatever scraps of cloth you have, trying to hold warmth close. You whisper a prayer or a promise, a plea for strength and mercy. The darkness presses in, but within you burns a quiet fire, a refusal to surrender. You know that this ordeal, no matter how brutal, will not define you. Your story is one of survival and courage, a testament to the strength of the human spirit even in the harshest of circumstances. You close your eyes, waiting for the dawn, holding on to hope that a new day will bring a new chance to live. You wake again in the cold stone chamber, the silence of the dungeon wrapping around you like a shroud. Yet today feels different. Maybe it is the faintest glimmer of light filtering through a crack in the heavy iron door, or perhaps it is the whisper of hope that has grown too loud to ignore. Whatever it is, you feel a stirring deep inside, a spark that refuses to be extinguished despite the years of hardship, hunger, and despair. The walls that have confined you for so long cannot contain this flicker of strength. You rise slowly, muscles stiff and weak, but your spirit is steady. You know this day may bring change, and you are ready to face it. The days in the dungeon have taught you lessons you never expected to learn, the raw limits of endurance, the quiet power of hope, and the resilience of the human spirit. Each moment of suffering was met with silent defiance, every pang of hunger a test of will, every shadow and scurrying rat a reminder of the harshness of your captivity. Yet you survived. Your mind, battered but unbroken, has become your sanctuary, a place where memories of freedom, love, and light remain alive. These memories carried you through the darkest hours and now guide you toward whatever lies beyond these walls. As the heavy door creaks open, a sliver of fresh air rushes in, carrying with it the scent of the world outside, earth, grass, and something that smells like rain. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, you breathe deeply, the cold no longer suffocating but invigorating. The guards stand silent, their expressions unreadable, yet the absence of cruelty is a balm to your weary soul. You step forward, unsteady but determined, and feel the rough hands helping you up. You realize this moment is your passage back to life, a crossing from darkness into light. Outside the dungeon, the sun warms your face, and the sky stretches wide and blue above you. You close your eyes, letting the light flood into your soul, healing wounds no medicine could touch. The sounds of life birds singing, leaves rustling, distant laughter fill your ears like music you thought you had forgotten. The cold grip of isolation slowly releases its hold, replaced by the tentative touch of freedom. You are fragile, yes, and your body bears the scars of your ordeal, but your heart beats with a fierce joy. You are alive, and that is a victory beyond measure. Friends and strangers gather, faces blurred but welcoming. You hear voices filled with relief and curiosity, whispers of your survival and rescue. Their presence reminds you that you are not forgotten, that beyond these walls, people cared and fought for your return. You feel the warmth of hands reaching out, gentle touches that reassure you of your belonging. The embrace of community fills the void left by years of solitude. You are home, and yet the journey to healing has only just begun. Your body, though weak, begins to mend. With nourishment and care, the hunger and cold that once consumed you slowly fade. Each day brings small victories, strength regained, wounds healing, breath deepening. The memory of pain remains, but it no longer defines you. You learn again the rhythms of life outside the dungeon, the taste of fresh food, the softness of clean clothes, the luxury of warmth and comfort. These simple pleasures become treasures, symbols of your hard-won freedom and the fragility of life. Yet the shadows of your imprisonment linger in your mind, nightmares haunt your sleep, and moments of despair still visit you unbidden. The scars are not only on your skin, but etched deep within your soul. You wrestle with the memories of cruelty, loneliness, and fear. But you also discover resilience, a strength born of survival that no darkness could extinguish. You begin to rebuild piece by piece, finding hope not just in freedom, but in the promise of a future shaped by your own hands. You share your story cautiously with those who listen and believe. Your words are heavy with truth, painting a vivid picture of the dungeon's horrors and the power of endurance. Your tale becomes a beacon for others trapped in shadows, a testament to the human will to survive and overcome. Through your voice, the forgotten suffer, the silenced pain, and the hidden courage are brought into light. Your experience shapes not only your own life, but the lives of many who hear and remember. The world outside continues to turn, full of challenges and change, but you face it now as a survivor, a witness to darkness and light. You find strength in community, in love, and in the simple joys of daily life. Each step forward is a triumph, a refusal to be defined by your past suffering. You learn to trust again, to dream again, to live again. Your heart, once heavy with despair, opens to possibility and renewal. In time, you find peace, not a forgetting of the past, but a reconciliation with it. The dungeon was a chapter, brutal and unyielding, but not the whole story. Your life continues beyond those walls, rich with meaning, connection, and hope. You carry your scars as badges of survival, reminders of battles fought and won. Your spirit, once confined, now soars free. This story ends here, with you standing in the sunlight, alive and unbroken. The dungeon's darkness fades behind you, a memory that shaped but did not destroy. Your journey is a testament to endurance, courage, and the unyielding human spirit. Though the path was long and cruel, you emerged into the light, ready to reclaim your life and shape your destiny.